So just looking at the coefficients, I have an 8 and a 2. Now, integers, whole numbers, we're used to this already. Can somebody please tell me, with the numbers 8 and 2, what is the largest factor that they have in common? The greatest common factor with 8 and 2. What is the biggest number that goes into both of them? Nicole? 2. 2 goes into 8, and it goes into itself. We are guaranteed then, in this case, that 2 is the coefficient for the greatest common factor between these two things. So the greatest common factor between these is going to be the greatest common factor of the coefficient and the greatest common factor of the variables. So now let's just look at the variables. I have x cubed and I have x squared. Now we could sit here and make a list, or we could think about what we just did in the last example. So let's make a real quick list first just to make sure we can visualize this. X cubed, my options are x squared times x cubed times 1, and that's pretty much it. For x squared, it's x times x, or it's x squared times 1. Now, the largest thing that I can get is the common factor with the highest exponent. So looking at all these things I've used, between these two lists, what is the largest exponent that each list has in common? Letty? X squared, x to the second power. It showed up here and it showed up here. Because it showed up in both lists, and it is the highest exponent that showed up in both lists, that creates our greatest common factor, which means between these two things, 2x squared is the greatest common factor. It definitely goes into this, 2x squared times 4x. It definitely goes into this because it is this. So what we actually have found is that 2x squared goes into 8x to the third.